So nice to see you again. Sit back, relax, and first, let me explain, okay? Page 11, chapter on impermanence. Hello? 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 Yes. Hola, so. Longchenpa's finding rest in the nature of mind, which has 13 chapters. First chapter about precious life, that which discussed last Thursday. Today, on the second chapter, impermanence. Our Lord Buddha Shakyamuni began his teachings on impermanent nature, impermanent lives, and then went on from there. At the very end of his life, his last teachings was also on impermanent. So, these impermanent teachings play very important role in the whole of Buddha Dharma teachings. So, for us to begin with, one must know that this teaching is a very important one. Now, in order to understand the teachings of impermanence, it is easier if one think in two aspects. That is, impermanent in a subtle sense, and impermanent on a grosser level. Impermanent on a subtle level basically fundamental teachings of Buddha, known as Four Seals. All composite phenomena are impermanent. Now, impermanent or transient nature is that whatever one see, one hear, one think, one feel, one touch. Everything is in transient nature. Nothing lasts. Everything is changing ever, moment by moment. This is, in fact, very important teachings, very important understanding. How do I say? This relative truth, relative world, the whole phenomena is transient nature. This is very important because ultimately speaking, samsara or suffering has to do with grasping mind. Grasping mind grasps to all objects as if they are going to exist forever. That's how one grasps. That's how one cling onto. Quite the contrary to what nature is. Nature is in transient nature, changing moment by moment. So, understanding that all these sensual objects, all phenomena, including one's own thought, how everything is changing. If one truly understands this, if one truly meditate on this transient nature, then something happened to your grasping and clinging mind. If everything is transient nature, then what this grasping mind is doing here? If this grasping mind goes on while everything is in transient nature, who wins? Who loses? Obviously, this grasping mind loses. When it loses, the suffering continues with that grasping mind. Grasping mind is there, clinging mind is there because one cling on to phenomena, outer phenomena, inner phenomena, this body, this mind, all the sensual objects, one cling on to them as if they are going to exist forever. So, understanding of impermanent nature, transient nature, help us tremendously reducing this ego clinging mind, grasping mind. That is the very important, essential for Buddha Dharma teachings. Also, knowing that everything is changing moment by moment by their nature, so everything is possible. Reducing this attachment is possible. Clinging mind is possible because everything is changing, transient nature. Where there's changing moment by moment, there is possibilities, infinite possibilities. How, strong, rigid things may appear, but still knowing their essence is transient nature, then everything is possible. For the practitioners, enlightenment within this life is possible, regardless how one's karma heavy may be, regardless how delusions are very big, overwhelming, these are possible. Enlightenment is possible. Liberation is possible. All because everything is in transient nature. This understanding of transient nature of everything liberates this mind of ours, which grasps on things rigid, with such a rigidity, is loosened up when one truly understands that things are not like how one grasps onto them. Therefore, understanding of transient nature of everything is very important. And then, grosser level of impermanence, that which is the main subject of Longchenpa's second chapter here on impermanence. This has to do with impermanent nature of this very existence. One never knows when this precious life can be over. Yes, as a human beings, we are smart enough to know that at certain point this is going to end. This existence is going to end. That, no problem. But what is problem is that we do not think about the uncertainty of that reality. Can it be tomorrow? Can it be today? Or can it be few years later? We never know. That uncertainty of this precious life's existence, is what impermanent here Longchenpa is telling us to know, to understand, to reflect on it. It is not that Longchenpa just making it up. Yes, life is impermanent. One never knows. Even though this is the nature, this is the reality, one have a tendency to put it off, for the next times. I want to practice Dharma, but maybe when I'm retired, when I have more times, then I'll go to a retreat. Postponing. I'll do tomorrow. So here, the purpose of studying the impermanence of life is then there one really come to know the uncertainty of this life and become wiser or realistic. That is, if I wish to practice Dharma, it is not tomorrow, it is today, right now and here. Can you generate a sense of urgency, not postponing? Procrastination has been the problems. So, as a true Dharma practitioners, by reflecting on the impermanent nature, then they work really hard. And many of us, we do practice Hondo. In our Hondo practice, reflection on impermanence. And that way, one turns one's mind toward Dharma genuinely and then try to practice. If one ever wish to do something, time must be now. Time must be now, not tomorrow. So that is the purpose of these teachings. Okay? Okay. Stanza 1. So basically, as I've just mentioned, Longchenpa says here, you have obtained this precious human life with so much freedoms, so much advantages. You have so many reasons to be happy that you have this precious life. At the same time, don't take things for granted. This precious human life one never know for how long one's going to have. So therefore, time to practice is now. Because when impermanent going to strike, we never know. So, reflecting on the very nature of this mind, this existence, which is impermanent, is very important. Okay. Now from stanza 2, I will rather overview 2 to 14 stanza is the main teachings of impermanent nature. Now, first begins here. When one reflects on the impermanent, first and foremost, important thing is look at this very life one have. Not like something impermanent out there, philosophically speaking, those kind of things. This very existing, this very body, this very speech, this very mind that one have, this very precious life that one have is impermanent. Look at how physically how changing. Look at how our mind is changing. Really, we never think the same thing like yesterday, let alone few years ago. We're a totally different person. Modern medical science says that our body is totally different after 6 months or how many years after, totally different. Changes. So most important is this very existence of oneself is impermanent. Never know. That's how we begin. While one has this precious life, one must do something. That's the whole point. And then one thing that this world, this phenomenal world is impermanent. Even this come to an end. Transient nature. While seemingly existing, all thing is in transient nature. And then this very thing disappears. Doesn't matter how powerful beings like gods, Longchenpa name here, Brahma and all other gods, powerful gods, doesn't matter, all these are also impermanent. Likewise, Buddhas has come in the past, Bodhisattva has come, they're all gone, impermanent. They're gone, came and gone. All the beings in the world come and goes. Some time ago, I went to have a breakfast at the East Beach There's a restaurant there. And in that restaurant, there's a picture. It's a beautiful picture of the East Beach and piers we have here in Santa Barbara. I noticed that picture was taken sometime at the turn of the last century, way over 100 years now. So in that picture, lots of young babies, beautiful adults, beautiful buildings also there. I really enjoyed looking at them and comparing what there is now. And at some point it strikes me that, oh, when I think about this, so many people there in the picture, right? Some kind of gathering, big gathering, I guess. So now everybody's gone. All these are gone. Young or old, doesn't matter. Perhaps none of these people are here with us. So that is impermanent reality. Here Longchenpa says, all the past people came and gone. Present moment, all these people, all of us, for how long? We never know. Future beings will come and will go like that. We have our own, like grandpa, great-grandpa, grandma, all are gone. Some cases, not even a trace of them left. Like that, it's gone. So this is what it is in permanent nature of life. Here, Longchenpa gives the example, a flutter flame caught in gale. If there's an example, to make it more understandable, we say Lungsepchi marmenangji, which means butter lamp in the middle of a big storm, wind blowing in all directions. Life's impermanent is like that. At any moment, this flame may be extinguished. At the same time, even for some reason, this flame is still continuing. This flame has its own life, its own limited butter there to consume. That as day goes by, as hour goes by, as minute goes by, it is heading toward that end. Not getting anything in addition, aiding, but ending. The more year pass, the more coming to somewhere where one may end. So these are, as a Buddhist practitioners, try to understand it realistically. Try to be wiser, try to become realistic. The realistic is life is like that, impermanent. Okay, now Longchenpa says here, when one leaves, what happens then? That's very much also important to know, because we do things to collect things, to as if we are going to live forever. That's what they do things. But then if you ask, What am I going to take with me? Here, nothing. One's loved ones, including this very body that one has, is going to be left behind. What else one is going to take? So, in this regard, why should I be collecting and keep on collecting? Think about that. Longchenpa says here, what is the meaning to all these? When one lives, what go along with our mind is our karma. May it be good karma or bad karma. Our habitual tendencies, our understanding, or whatever wisdom one attains, that will go along with. But then nothing else, including this very cherished body. And then here stands stanza 15. Longchenpa requests to all to practice Dharma. When we talk about preciousness of human life, we say that this life is like a perfect boat that's in perfect condition, ready to sail to cross the ocean of samsara. Now you must sail it. Sail it. Why you're waiting? At this very moment, practice. Because at the end, this is the only thing it's going to help. Nothing else. Be realistic to that. In fact, Longchenpa's way of saying here in Tibetan poetic work of him is amazing. Each sentence is just very much touching. But here in translation, its meaning is caught there. That's good. But the feeling is not there. Anyway, Longchenpa says, use it. Life is, precious life is as if we are in the island of treasure island where there's lots of jewels around. Prepare to take some. If you leave empty-handed, something is profoundly missing. We prepare, you collect. At the end, nothing will take with you. Everything to be left behind is what you are collecting. So here, become realistic and practice Dharma. And that's the most important thing that you can do. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 is a dedication. Basically, if one ever wishes to do something, practice Dharma, right here and now is the time. Generally speaking, we have a sometime misunderstanding. Oh, I'm not happy right now. I do something. I want to do this, do that, and then I will be happy later on. Don't make that mistake also. If you wish to be happy, this is the time. This is the moment to be happy. If I wish to do something good, this is the moment. As Longchenpa said, this precious human life, this is it. This is as far as it gets. Precious human life. The time-wise also, this is it. And this very moment is the moment to practice. So, by reflecting on the impermanent nature of life, understanding on the impermanent nature of life, one must generate this sense of urgency and find a meaning to this very life. Is the purpose of this teaching on impermanence. Okay, that completes impermanent chapter. Now next chapter is chapter on suffering nature of samsara. Okay. Page 17, if you want. Suffering nature of samsara. Here, I want to say that when Buddha first taught the Four Noble Truth, he said, truth of suffering that must be understood. Truth of cause of suffering that must be abandoned. So here, the chapter is on truth of sufferings, right? Something that one must understand. Why, in fact, one should understand the truth of sufferings? Because so, if one truly understands the truth of suffering, then one think of what is the cause of all this? Obviously, it's not created by external factors. It is created, one's own creations. What are the cause of these creations? If one wishes to be happy, have happiness, one must accumulate the cause that bring happiness. If one do not want all this suffering, one must put to end to this cause of sufferings. To understand that, really, genuinely understand, genuinely aspire to put to stop to this cause of suffering is when one understand, when one reflect on the nature of sufferings. So there's a reason for it. And then furthermore, of course, our attachment, which is the core of samsara, is reduced by understanding suffering nature of samsara. Likewise, remember in Honro practice, kamsum kowa dunghal jamsuyunga tene talo chulan jorashu, which means by remembering the suffering, understanding the suffering nature of samsara, may my mind turn toward Dharma. Why should I turn my mind toward Dharma? By understanding the nature of samsara. Wishing to liberate from that sufferings. And then one turn one's mind toward Dharma. This is called Ngenjung, renunciation in Tibetan. Ngenjung. So all these play by understanding suffering nature of samsara. And then, really, compassion. In order to really understand, generate compassion, one must think of suffering nature of samsara. And there comes a genuine compassion. May all sentient beings be free of sufferings, that sufferings. If one kind of put it off, thinking about suffering nature of samsara, I do not want to think about those. How can that person genuinely generate heartfelt compassion. May all sentient beings be free of sufferings. So here, as we go through the suffering of samsara, one go through with compassion, with compassion. Of course, all sentient beings wish to be free. No one wish to have sufferings. And yet, by their own creation, sentient beings go through sufferings. How poor, how pity, how suffering sentient beings are. With that, the more one think, more one study the suffering nature of samsara, more generate compassion, more generate the understanding the nature of samsara. This plays very, very important role. So therefore, as we know, as you know, many sutras talks about suffering. Some sutras just talk about sufferings. Suffering of hell realms, for instance. And reading those sutras, thinking about suffering nature of samsara, then really this practitioner turn his or her mind toward Dharma. A genuine aspiration for liberations happens when one reflects on the suffering of samsara. So this is the reason. Now, stanza first. As always, Longchenpa first introduced briefly overall suffering nature of samsara. Here, three kinds of sufferings. Suffering of suffering. This refers to the suffering that we know. Who would not know suffering? That sickness, pain, obvious suffering. That's suffering of suffering. And then suffering of change. That is like whatever enjoyment one have. But these things are inherently not happiness. These things change. If the very thing that, give you happiness, if you take it more, keep on taking more, it turns into suffering. Isn't it? That is what one usually know as happiness. The happy is in fact suffering of change. Now I'm sitting, if I feel like standing up, for how long I stand, 1 hour, my leg started shaking, pain is there. Sit down again, later on, after a few hours, again pain appears. So the pleasure of standing and sitting, the happiness or whatever pleasure, inherently these are not, inherently not pleasure or happiness. Inherently sufferings of change. It just happened to be, releasing the suffering of sitting by standing up. That standing up suffering is released by sitting down, but sitting down and standing up both has its own sufferings. So that which what we know, it's like eating so much enchiladas. Isn't it? At the beginning, it's really tasty. But if you eat too much, what happened again? Is yet another story, suffering of change. Then that goes on, the story. And then, most importantly, here translated is suffering in the making, but mostly translated as all pervasive sufferings. All pervasive suffering is this very existence, this flesh, is subject to sickness, old age, death. Basically, karmically produce all pervasive sufferings. This mind, having all these thoughts, emotional thoughts, is subject to sufferings. It's not suffering, may not see it, but its nature as a suffering. This grasping mind, its nature is suffering. This clinging mind, its nature is suffering. Because transient nature of all phenomena, this clinging mind, grasping mind loses at the end. Suffering comes. This body, I have to drink every 5 minutes water. If I don't, what happens? So, all pervasive sufferings is this physical, this mental, basically that which has, we call sakche, which has negative emotions, let's say, that which has negative emotion, all are pervasive sufferings. So you understand the suffering will appear, it must appear. Things comes to an end, all subject to sufferings. So, right? All pervasive sufferings, from which all suffering starts. So, here some scholars argue that suffering is may not be a good translation, because suffering has a connotation that pain or that suffering of suffering is what we are talking about here, but not the suffering of change. So all pervasive suffering is not, this suffering do not covers this suffering of change and suffering, all pervasive sufferings. But anyway, here in the Buddhist teachings, we talk about suffering nature in terms of 3 categories. And when we look to sentient beings, all sentient beings are within these categories. All pervasive sufferings of change, and suffering of suffering, that what we perceive, what we conceptualize as suffering, we know as sufferings, but all sufferings. Okay. Okay, now from stanza 2 to 8, Longchenpa first going to unravel this general understanding of sufferings. That when one think about it, and one truly understand the nature of samsara. Nature of samsara is within ignorance, aversions, and attachments. With ignorance, sentient beings wish for happiness, but what they do? Accumulating the cause that which brings sufferings. Not knowing what are the cause of sufferings, what are the cause of happiness, liberation is not known. And then with attachments, general traditional example is like a flies that sometimes when you have, in summertime when you have butter lamp, morning you see lots of flies that died there, born there. These flies attached to the form comes to the fire, very fire, through their own attachments. Likewise, traditionally, it said that like a deers attached to the sound, and listening to the sound, do not escape from hunters, being killed by hunters. Fish attached to the taste, and then bite to the fisher's bat. Elephant attached to the body sensations, particularly in summer hot days, walk in the swamp, which gives cooling effect. It keep on walking and it's stuck in the swamp and then suffering there. So like that. And then with the aborigines, creating all these sufferings. And this is how sentient beings kind of function in that way, with ignorance, delusions, attachments, clingings, aversions, wander in samsara. Until the realization is happens, and then the delusion, the ignorance come to an end, sentient beings wander through samsara. Now, if you ask for how long, then no ending. Past, in our practice, Chinese practices, from the beginningless lifetimes, we say, Nata so na jamso chenpo tsam licho so na samdu jö me long, which means if those lives one have taken, so many lives one have taken in the past, all these sufferings, if all the flesh and bone put together, it will be bigger than the Mount Meru. If all the blood and pus that in our lifetimes shed, if they put them together, bigger than these oceans. Like that, so many lifetimes one have taken. When one taken life to this in this samsaric phenomena, all this how functions is with ignorance, delusions, and aversions, all these things, how we wander, sentient beings wander in samsara. Doesn't matter, desire realm or form realm, formless realm, all throughout the realms. That's how sentient beings wander. Now, in Buddhist practice, in Mahayana, particularly Mahayana practice, when we talk about bodhicitta, then we talk about viewing all sentient beings as one's mother. Because in these infinite lifetimes one have taken, at one point or another, I may have been your mother. You may have been my mother. I may have been your brother. You may have been my sisters. like that. So those, as a Buddhist, those who believe in the infinite lifetimes, past lifetimes, then thinking that all sentient beings as one's mother, all motherly sentient beings, that's why we say. So when one thinks like that, there comes a sense of closeness to all sentient beings. So that way, generating genuine compassion and bodhicitta. Okay, and then now Longchenpa says, how many kinds of sentient beings are there? Here, Longchenpa says there are 6 different kinds of sentient beings, right? As we all know, most of you know, the 3 lower realms as hell, hungry ghosts, and animal. Higher 3 realms as human, asura, and deva, god realms. So within these 6 different realms, cyclic existence, sentient beings wander from one to another until one liberates from delusions, ignorance, awaken from these, sentient beings wander through 6 different realms. Okay. Now it's stanza 9 through 12. First, let me be brief because we have much to cover. Here Longchenpa says, first talking about real sufferings of 6 different realms. First, what are the basis of these sufferings? Basis of these sufferings, obviously, first is ignorance. That ignorance that which cling on to self as I. And then grasping on things. I which do not exist, make it concept of it. And this Longchenpa employs the Yogacaра's term, imputed nature, which do not exist, but sentient beings grasp as existence. That's like I. And then from there on, samsara manifests. And this manifestation from this ignorance, Longchenpa used the term dependent nature. Dependent nature is Yenwang in Tibetan, which means now from this, based on this, then dependent nature phenomena arising, suffering nature. But then when one truly realizes the selfless nature, one's true nature, then actual nature, which is one's true nature, Buddha nature, is realized. So Longchenpa used this term here. That's why I'm just using it. And then when you look at it, the basis of sufferings, body, speech, and mind, sentient beings, phenomena. And corresponding to that, we have 3 realms, by the way. Desire realm, formless realm, formless realm. That's a long story, but desire realm, driven by desire, this covers whole. From hell realm to basically all realms. But among the God realms, 6 types of God realms within the desire realm. 6 $2 6 kind of desire realms God are included. And then form realms. Form realms, there are actually 17 It's a long story, but to put it in a nutshell, there are 17 steps up, higher dhyana state, samadhi state. There are form realms. Each goes settler minds. And then formless realm, there are 4 states, 4 abode, which then no forms, not even just mental body, just exists, just in a settled state of mind, not even grosser level mind. These are the 3 realms. So, where suffering is happening in these 3 realms, okay? And then Longchenpa continues here, 8 consciousness, which basically I will later, the next chapter I will further explain. 8 consciousness, basically our minds, different levels of minds. Within these, all sentient beings have these kind of minds. Within these, sentient beings wander in samsara. So basically, basis of suffering in samsara are taught from stanza 2, from stanza 9 to 12. Okay, now we come to the real thing here. The 6 different realms, sufferings. Now, the suffering in samsara, if one want to truly understand how many are there, how we look at it, the scope of it, this is then the teaching on 6 different realms. That's all. Even though there's a Bardo beings in transition, but Bardo beings again, some argue there's a 7th realm, but mostly agree that 7th realm should belong to somewhere. If it's human being meant to go to God realm, so in the Bardo state, that human phenomena continues, and then cross the border to the God realm. So it belongs to one of those things. We cannot count 7th. So that's the most agreed upon. So 6 different realms. Okay. Actually, I just want to say this. There's one painting, called Wheel of Life. It's very easy to understand, actually, right? The Wheel of Life has in the center 3 poisons, which is represented by 3 animals, and then those things. All 6 different realms are painted. And if you happen to have time, just go in Wheel of Life. This is important because from Buddha's own word, it played an important role to make understand samsara is all about. For that reason, all the big temples at the door, it's written there. If you look at different big temples, right at the door, it's drawn before you enter the temple. It is said that in Tibetan version, we have so many concepts. Our concept is then now you enter the temple, you are leaving behind the 6 different realms and entering into beyond samsara. That represents why they painted at the door. Okay, with that, let me first begin with the hell realms. stanza from 13 to 34. Let me first say this, which is about hell realms. Now, this may be interesting. Some scholars say that, well, hell, the word is not good here in Buddhism. Hell has a connotation that you are stuck forever. If that's the case, how there can be a hell in Buddhism? There's no such thing. Everything is transient nature. Hell is also transient nature. Go there, however long he or she have to reap the result of their karma, and come back. Come back. Just like criminals in our world, judges put them to sentence in prison for 150 years, something like that. And if you ask what happens, then if the criminal live past 150 years, obviously it's going to come out and roam in the street. That's the concept here. In Buddhism, there's no such thing as eternal hell. And then these people suggest, how about we use the word purgatory? Obviously, in Catholic Church, purgatory, somewhere you stay there for a while and then go somewhere else. But that again is not acceptable, I guess. Scholars, translators use the hell. So anyway, this is something for you to think about. Okay. And then hell realms. Where are they? Can we go with a rocket, shoot there and look at how they are? So here, there are generally some teaching says there's such locations talk about, but starting from early Mahayana schools do not accept such hell realms out there, all created from this evil mental state. So here first let me quote this. Shantideva said, Chasi saji suichi moso teda chilichung, tenda teda tamchijang, diksemi ba tuve. So here, in translation, it said, the hellish instruments to torture living beings, who invented them for such intent? Who has forged this burning iron ground in hell realms? Whence have all these demon women sprung? All are but the offsprings of the sinful mind. This, the mighty sage has said, throughout the triple world. Therefore, there is no greater band than mind itself. So, mind's creations. Nightmare. But if you say again, there's no nightmare, that's not right either. For the dreamer, dream is, difficult to say if that's real or not real. From our perspective, or waking person's perspective, or dreamer's perspective, but nightmare. One, I just remember this one story. I'm kind of the to make the point we say is that let's imagine two people in a beautiful house. The one person, perhaps he stayed late last night, watched horror movies, and he's asleep. He's sleeping state, in a sleeping state. He's not only asleep, not only aware of the beautiful palace that he's in, beautiful house or palace that he's in, actually he is having a nightmare. And the person next to him who is awake, with his clairvoyance, he knows his buddy friend is having a nightmare. He can't believe it. Such nightmare that he go through. Tremendous sufferings. Obviously, he's going to wake up sweating, So this waking person who is awake, who has clairvoyance, tells this sleeping person, "Hey, buddy, you have to wake up. Don't you understand? We are in this beautiful place. Why should you have nightmares? It's time to wake up. Time to wake up. Do not continue, indulge. Do not take things real, thinking that nightmares are real for you. These are not real. Wake up to the reality of this beyond nightmare, the beauty beyond nightmare." So this is how, sentient beings go through nightmares. So what is hell? Hell is these from karmas that which we are going to talk about in the next chapter. And then all these nightmares sentient beings face. So among all the nightmares, the worst one, the most intense one, most long time one is hell realms. And now hell realms. Okay, now hell realms. What is the cause to be born in hell realms? These are with hatred, anger, mainly these emotions, and creating such sinful actions, just like killing one's parent, with hatred. So these kind of karma propel these beings into hell realms. And when you are in hell realms, what experience sentient beings feel? They feel two things: heat and cold. Say heat and cold. Suffering of heat and suffering of cold, right? So that's generally what sentient beings suffer. And then if you ask how many kinds of hell realms are there, now here, don't be surprised. There are 8 hot hell realms, 8 cold realms, 16, and top of that, lesser hell realms and neighboring hell realms, 18. 18 realms. Okay. These are, please do not make things like, not existing or nothing like that, but study and reflect on this with compassion. The sentient beings, nightmare are there. So the timing, again, long time, millions of years, human years, they suffer. So nyari dunga tsetse la so ba tujam mi de shechu insan ba chami nga yi tui lengen ba tharmi lengen sa ba tolo sha, which means if one think that these are all just a tale, that again, is a sinful actions. So with compassion and with genuine sense of promise that one would not accumulate such cause to be born in such realms, one should study and listen, it is said. Okay. Now let me first briefly explain from stanza 13 through stanza 22, by the way, is about heart, hell. Heart hells, as it says, basically heart, burning heart, iron ground, and everywhere, heart experience. So through that, sufferings, right? And there are 8. First is Yang Sui means reviving. Reviving, which means within such nightmare, sentient beings kill each other with weapons on this such a hard, phenomena. And then they die, and then some sound comes from above saying, come back to life. And they all of a sudden, they come back to life, again suffer. And that goes on. It's called reviving sufferings. For how long? That's a long time. He said that 50 human life, 50 human years is one day in the divine realm of Paul Great King, in the divine realm, in the God realm of Paul Great King, which is the first step of desire realms God. Okay, and then 500 of that God's realms year is one day in the reviving hell realms. So you imagine, for a long time. So it goes more and more as hell realm goes down, more and more intense. 7 times more heat, 7 times more longer time, and goes down to 8 hard realms. And then Tigna, black line hell realms, Dunjom, crushing hell realms, and then screaming hell realms, great screaming hell realms, heat and great heat hell realms, and the last one is torment of unsurpassed. There's no beyond that sufferings. So these are hard 8 realms of hell. And then Longchenpa goes to the lesser realms. Stanza 23. Lesser hell realms, these beings can be born in different places, in the rock, in the wood. Sometimes when you crack a rock, all of a sudden you find out of nowhere, most of the time people find like a frog, as if almost, how come that frog has been sitting here? So like that kind of hell realms is there. It's said that that's a lesser realms, actually experiencing hot and cold, similar to hell realms, but these are lesser realms. And then it stanza 25 through 31 is neighboring hell realms. Neighboring hell realms, there are 4 in each direction of the basically, hard realms, particularly this base one, torment of unsurpassed hard realm. Each directions there are 4 different, neighboring hard realm, neighboring hell realms. These are called trench of Ronyandam Tatsenchu Chuji Judu Sanyachi Nishi Jawaju, which means now the idea is that in the hell realms, as beings are experiencing suffering, and their karma is slowly consumed, slowly emptying out, and then they're slowly coming out of hell realms. And when they come out, doesn't matter from each directions, then they face these neighboring hell realms. These neighboring hell realms are 4: trench of burning ember first, and then next to that is swamp of rotting corpse, and next to that is the ascension beings go further, then plan of razors, and then 4th one is faultless stream of burning ash. So such experience hell realms, sentient beings, nightmares go through. And then 32 stanza, 8 cold hells that are basically extremely cold, freezing cold. With that, sentient beings have the nightmare of cover with blister, and then bursting that blister, the second. And then teeth are chattering in the cold, basically that kind of expression of extreme cold. Cry is one, and lemon is one, like upala flower is one, that now split into many pieces with extreme cold, and then like lotus split, like great lotus split, like that cold realms experience. Together, now, how many hell realms? How many beings? There are different beings, 18 different kinds of beings. And if you count again, the neighboring hell, even more. 16, from each directions, this four to each directions, 16 neighboring hell realms. So, sentient beings, motherly sentient beings, some unfortunate sentient beings do have these nightmares. And Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, even our Lord Buddha Shakyamuni had a story going to the hell realms, liberating hell realms. Bodhisattvas like Sai Nimbo, like we have a statue here, Bodhisattva, he promised that until all beings in samsara is empty, he will not attain enlightenment. He always work for the beings in hell realms. Such a tremendous aspirations, bodhicitta. So these beings go to these realms and liberate sentient beings. So for us, when one hears this, general sense of compassion to these beings who is going through tremendous nightmares, and at the same time make a genuine promise, wishing that one to be liberated from such, and make a genuine wish that one never goes accumulate. Be careful. In the teaching says, infinite lifetimes. And maybe if someone might have accumulated such karma that may head toward that. Be careful. But, those who take refuge in three jewels, practice Dharma, we never have to go to the hell realms. One of the benefit of taking refuge in three jewels, one never fall into three lower realms, right? So, but still there are beings who are having these nightmares. So your compassions in your bodhicitta aspirations, always pray, always pray. Okay, now next are easy ones. Preta realms, hungry ghost realms. These are important. Why I'm also focusing is because we practice on Sunday, Tampon Jabo Chenezi. We go through 6 different realms, right? So as a Dharma practitioners, 6 different realm understanding is very important. Very basic understanding is very important. So I hope not only rely on my just brief explanation, this really help you to guide through, but please go back and read, hopefully, Now, Preta realms. This has to do with the greed. And then with that, do all kinds of things. What experience they get is hunger and thirst. Tremendous hunger and thirst. And then physical features usually we depict is that small mouth, small throat, big stomach, small leg, like that kind of sentient beings depicted. And then Idachi Dipache, obscuration, outer obscuration, who has outer obscurations, when they see the beautiful place, they try to reach there, this beautiful place disappears. The delicious food that they see, try to eat, this become iron ball. Clean drinking water they see, try to drink this turn into not drinkable. So like that kind of experience, sentient beings go through. So as a bodhisattva, as a practitioners, one generate compassion. And then those who have inner defects, in translated here, like inner defects, basically burning inside. And some drawing you see some beings, smoke coming out of their mouth. So these are hungry ghosts, preta realms, sentient beings, sufferings, right? Okay, and then go to higher animal realms. Animal realms is a Jingna Nipa tang Katorwa ringing. Jingna Nipa means in Buddhist cosmology talk about great oceans, and in those oceans, sentient most animal realms dwell there. And then scattered, Katorwa means scattered animal that we find birds and dogs, whatever. In human realms are scattered animal beings. So general sufferings of animal realms is they prey on each other, right? As we know. And that one we have animal in our human world, particularly in Santa Barbara in the West is quite good, but in the East, you use them. Right? Maybe, cow or other things. So these are sufferings. A lot of them. And then comes human realms. We human beings, beautiful place. among all the lives, human life is the best because we have such a balanced mental state that which we can accomplish anything. When one hears such suffering of sentient beings, one may have some kind of compassion may generate. It is important, really. Try not to become kind of seeing all these sufferings in the world. Now kind of you become accustomed to it and no more feeling like that. That's very dangerous. Have compassion. When you hear such wonderful things, have devotions. These are very important. So anyway, human realm is the best. And yet, when we talk about sufferings, there are sufferings. Sufferings of suffering, as we know, sufferings of change, or pervasive suffering is there. And on top of that, sufferings of birth, suffering of sickness, sufferings of old age, suffering of death. Likewise, we say sufferings of separating from loved ones, sufferings of encountering who one do not encounter, sufferings of not getting what one wished to obtain, and sufferings of just all these unfortunate circumstances falling upon. These kind of sufferings. 8 kind of sufferings. Explain. Yes, these are real. All human beings are feeling like that, unfortunately. Okay. Then we go up to the Asura realms. What is Asura realms? Is jealousy. So much jealousy. Their sufferings is they kill each other, fight, argue all the time. They argue to the god in the upper realms. They wage war, and they are being killed by gods. And within themselves, they are not peaceful. They are arguing within themselves. Some really represents, such sufferings are in human realms, right? At the worst case, when in the depict of demigod realms, there's a tree, fruit tree, growing from their realms, and the top fruit yielding is in the realm of God, upper God. So demigods looking up there, seeing that upper God realms using the fruit, which tree grows from their realms, they feel tremendous jealousy. With that, sufferings. And then God realms go there because of arrogance. And then God realms, sufferings, usually God realms, particularly formless realms, less. But then at the time of their death, when their time is over, in particularly form realms, it said that then their friends abandon them, their flower garlands become now old, and then their loved ones avoiding them. Interestingly, in Sutra, in many treatises also say this, the loved ones throw flower to the dying god and say, after this life, may you be born in human realms. In that human realms, may you do good things, accumulate merit, may you come back here. So that's their aspiration. And then falling down kind of sufferings, other god realms, they see where they are going to be next life will be falling. Obviously not in Santa Barbara, I guess, somewhere else. They see where they're going. So there are sufferings. And then, last thing I want to say is that such 6 different realms. Not only we talk about such things, but in the human realm itself, right? Do we have hell-like experience driven by hatred, heat and cold? Of course there. With greed, driven actions, mental state, hungry and thirst, of course in human realms. And then animal realms, human realms, all these realms are actually, in human realm also. Okay, now okay, now stanza 51 up to 49 is 6 different realms, and 51 is now 50 and 51, 54. Now Longchenpa says, practice Dharma. If you think this sufferings or wars that one do not wish to go through, then practice Dharma. Make sure you don't go there. Make sure you liberate from them. So it's important as a practitioners studying like this, reflecting on these sufferings, then one truly try to be mindful, not accumulating any negative karma, and stop to all these causes, and then strive for liberation from this cycle of existence known as samsara. So as a practitioners, one know this suffering nature of samsara, and then one genuinely wish to liberate from and genuinely search for the path that which lead to perfect enlightenment. So these are the purpose of studying and reflecting on the nature of samsara. Okay, that completes. Okay, we are behind time, but I really, let's see, do we have time? I really want to start the next chapter. Okay, I will briefly start the next chapter so that you have something to, more homework, okay? Okay, the next chapter is then now the karmic law of cause and effect. Karmic law of cause and effect. This chapter is, I'll just start because it's important. Now the first stanza. In Buddhism, most important to know is that there's no external creator. Who created these sufferings? One's own creation, right? Which means oneself is the creator. There's no other creator. Fundamental view of Buddhism. Whatever suffering that we describe in hell realm, different realms, different kind of nightmares, everything is from our own actions, nothing else. Very important. But nothing comes out with no cause. Very important. Right? So Longchenpa says here in the stanza 1, comes from one's own actions. That action now, what kind of actions are there? Bad action, good action, known as 10 virtuous actions which lead to the higher realms, 10 non-virtuous actions which lead toward the lower realms. So, whatever we talk about all has to do with one's own actions. That's it, period. Okay. And then the next, I just want to share this, and then from stanza 12 to 13, from stanza 2 to 12, okay, from stanza 2 to 12. Longchenpa here begins, before he talks about all the karmas, where karmas are based. Where karmas are based. Here then, he talks about the 8 consciousness. Very important to know. There are lots of to say about this. For practitioners, really, for Buddhist psychology, this is very important. But briefly, I will introduce you this one. First, to begin with, their so-called alaya consciousness. Alaya consciousness. First, alaya state. Alaya state. That's not consciousness, by the way. Come back. Universal ground. Okay, universal ground. Universal ground is where all the habits are left. Whatever karmas accumulated, habits are stored there. Karmas is stored there. And then habits continue to the next life. Subtle mind, very subtle mind is called alaya. Right? And then next to this is consciousness of universal ground. Consciousness of universal ground is simply this clarity of all phenomena, whatever phenomena in front, general phenomena, this clarity aspect of mind is alaya consciousness. And then goes down to the 5th consciousness, visual consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, 5 consciousness. All right? And then goes to mental consciousness. Mental consciousness, that which is basically when one sees things, and there's a clarity that which distinguish the object. Discerning is there. This is mental consciousness. It's still no conceptions. And then defile consciousness, defile mind translated here, that is then conceptions, that is good and bad, like that. So here Longchenpa gives example like mirror itself is alaya, and then that mirror's untarnished surface, the clarity, is the consciousness of universal ground, alaya consciousness. And then whatever reflections that appear in the mirrors are 5 other consciousness, like visual consciousness and the rest, like that explains. So basically, let me give you a little bit of an example. When I look at in this screen, this, I have this clarity, basically general clarity, that is alaya consciousness. And then appearing this screen is mental consciousness. And then I have the defiled consciousness that which define, oh, this is computer screen, that is not, this is good, this is bad. Then defining the conceptions, this is defined consciousness. Okay, so in a nutshell like that, please go read, and we have to have lots of questions and answers next time. Okay, and then this I just want to say this. And then Longchenpa says here, this alaya and mental consciousness, and then the other visual consciousness, and these are the ones in which all karmas are created. Basically, see, in Buddhism, we say everything is mind, right? So, within eight consciousness, everything is created. Within eight consciousness, everything is stored. Within eight consciousness, things functions. So, eight consciousness. And now I would stop here. I have much things to say, but let me stop here. Time is passing. Okay, everyone. Thank you. Please go back and read. This continues until stanza 12. Okay, I will revisit this a little bit next time, but I will mainly start from stanza 13 next time. Thank you, everyone. Any questions, please? And then you have a question?
Yes, Rinpoche, I have one quick question about what you just explained, and then I have one other question. But if there's
Maybe we do
questions,
later. This just explain is,
okay. So then I had another question. When it comes to, so I've long been confused about the 8 classes of gods and demons. Like, what are they? Where do they fall in samsara? And are they actually sentient beings, or are they manifest projections of our defilements? But I did notice in the section on the sufferings of the 6 realms, it mentions that some of them seem to be in the Preta realm. Can you just talk a little bit about that? If it's always, are they always Pretas, or what are they? How do we understand those classes of gods and demons?
So Aaron's question is, there are 8 gods that we talk about. I would say this is a little bit Vajrayana, very much. In Vajrayana, we talk about 8 consciousness, then 8 arrogant gods and demons manifest from 8 consciousness, by the way. Now you know 8 consciousness, right? Consciousness of universal ground. 5, visual consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, body consciousness, tongue consciousness, and then mental consciousness and defiled consciousness, 8. From that, 8 gods and demons we talk about. So some of these belong to God realms, and most of them belong to hungry ghosts. There's hungry ghost realms. There are 2 hungry ghost realms which dwell in their own place, and hungry ghost beings who kind of soar in in the sky. So these belong. So therefore, some of these gods belong to Holy Ghost realms. Okay, any questions online? Isabel?
Yes, hello Tukula. I'm not seeing any questions
Okay.
in the chat at the moment.
Good. Now let us do a little bit of meditation and then conclude, okay? Everyone, thank you. Please sit straight, your two palms down, relax. And briefly think the impermanent nature of one's own life and all transient nature. And then think now suffering nature that we talk about. Hell, Holy Ghost, and all the realms sufferings. Feel a sense of genuine compassion to all these beings. From here on, oneself is going to stop end to these sufferings and walk toward liberations. Okay.